Into another Patriots live mock draft 3.0. I'm not exactly sure why we call it 0.0 or anything. It's not like we do 3.1, but
See, it sounds scientific.
It sounds good. So that's why everybody uses that formula. So mock draft 3.0 here for the New England Patriots, led by GMs Alex Barth and Evan Lazar. Patriots.
It's a scary thought, isn't it?
It's a scary thought, but I think in some ways maybe we would go more chalk than what people want us to do.
I think
the Patriots end up actually doing most of the time.
I think you can find our previous drafts on the CLNS YouTube page there, wherever you're on our Twitters, wherever you're watching. I think the first draft, we killed it. I think the first draft, we were excellent. Last week, not so much.
Yeah. So we're going to try to reconcile for last week and do a better job this week of targeting specific players instead of just sort of trying to move around the board. But before we get into the actual mock draft piece of the show, we wanted to discuss, Alex, you put out there on Twitter right before we started that I'm thinking of maybe taking a quarterback on day 2 is the most likely scenario, but all of us, I think myself included, and I think you included, would love to see the Patriots go against their typical brand and trade up for a quarterback in the first round. Now, Mike Lombardi, of course, the Belichick protege, but Belichick friend, confidant, I should call him, not protege, confidant, said the other day on his podcast that it's just so un-Bill-like to make that sort of trade, right? To make a trade like the 49ers did, where you trade future picks, you trade picks now to move all the way up to 4 or something like that is just not something that Bill Belichick typically does. Now, we've said it multiple times. It bears repeating. Bill Belichick doesn't typically spend $300 million in free agency either. So this is not a typical Bill Belichick offseason so far. So I don't know.
This is uncharacteristically aggressive part 2.
Right. So
we got it with free agency. I'm going to continue to believe that I'm going to continue to believe that it continues into the draft. You, I guess, don't, and a lot of people don't, and that's fair. I'm going to keep riding the momentum.
The reason why I can't think that it's going to continue in the draft is because the Patriots are such a value-based team when it comes to the draft, and if they don't feel like Justin Fields or Trey Lance or even Mac Jones, if he's still there at 4, grades out as a prospect that you're taking at 4 and you're trading up at 4 and giving up that type of haul, then their algorithm is going to say we're giving up way too much value for a player that we're not 100% sold on. Unless they have completely fallen in love with somebody like Justin Fields, it's just so hard to fathom that they would do this type of trade without really being convinced of the guy that they're going to take, right? And any team should really only do that. You can't just do it just to do it, right? You got to, if you're going to trade up, you got to be 100% convinced. So,
but in some ways, is it taking Kellen Mond in the second round also doing it just to do it? If you don't love any of the guys at the top, and you're saying, well, we also don't love Mond, but at least we don't have to spend as high of a pick. Because that kind of sounds like what you're saying.
More than you like Mond. Okay. And I think that they also, in general, I feel like taking a quarterback in the second round with your own pick in the second round and not trading up for him and just getting that player for your pick is the value play. That's the value play at that position. It's especially the value play to get a guy on day 2 that you might feel like could actually be your starter, and maybe he won't be as good as Mac Jones or Justin Fields, but maybe you feel like it's close enough that it's going to be in the same ballpark in terms of his projection. And that's where you're going with it. Now, we can start running the simulation and see what ends up happening 1, 2, and 3, and then discuss the possibilities of at least kind of making a framework of a trade up to go up into 4 if we want to do that, and then kind of decide whether or not we feel like it's worth it at that point.
So you do want to go to 4 and maybe trade up?
I'm leaving it on the table. Let's just see how 1, 2, and 3 go.
I'll just add one more thing to what you said. I think you, and maybe the Patriots disagree with this, I think you have to throw the whole value concept out the window when it comes to quarterback. I think you just have to treat that position differently. I think you have to attack it more aggressively. Value quarterbacks is kind of how they got where they are. I don't necessarily think
for the most
Kellen Mond is going to be a bad player. I just would rather have the guy that has a higher chance of being a legitimate NFL starter. Taking Kellen Mond 46, I think there's a real chance you end up with a backup, or more of a chance to not you end up with a backup. And again, the highest picked quarterback ever to not start a game was at 51.
Well, he's going to start if they take him at 46.
I would hope so. But again, they're
going to give him a chance to start regardless, right? You know, I mean, you take a quarterback in the top 50 and he's eventually going to get a chance to start. I think the issue that you have with 4, again, is you have to absolutely love Justin Fields, because you just saw what the 49ers gave up to go from 12 to 3. You're looking at a similar type of package to move from 15 to 4. So if you don't love the player, then you just gave up a king's ransom for him. And just as easily as you could get Justin Herbert, or you could get Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, you could also get Mitchell Trubisky. And I'm not saying that Justin Fields is that, but that's the reality of the top of the draft at quarterback. Is most of the time guys get overvalued, and most of the time guys bust just as easily as they don't. You know, it's a 50-50 proposition, and you'd have to be really convinced about the guy. You have to be 100% certain that he's going to be able to play.
I just want to point out how far we've come from back in October when me and you were arguing in the press box, and I was campaigning hard for the Patriots to take Mac Jones 46, because that's what it looked like at the time. Right. And I was coming up with all this nonsense about, oh, well, Russell Wilson, this and that. And you were saying you can't get a good quarterback after the first round because of analytics and math and all of that. Russell Wilson's a thing of the past, and it's impossible to get a good quarterback after that point. And then we had Mark Schofield on Tuesday, and he says the thing about, well, really, Lance and Mac Jones are your second-tier quarterbacks. They've just been pushed further up. And that kind of maybe displays it where you get Kellen Mond as that third tier, but we've totally flipped from that. So let's just get into this draft.
All right, let's do it. Let's see what happens the first 3 picks. A lot of people in the chat are already mad at me that we don't want to. It's not that I don't want to trade up to 4 for Justin Fields or a quarterback. It's I don't think that they're going to do it, right? I want to make that very clear. We're trying to be realistic here, and I just don't know how realistic that is. All right, so I'm assuming the simulator's programmed to. Interesting. So now the trade up is off the table, right? I'm not trading up to 4 for Mac Jones. I'm not doing it.
Well, what about Trey Lance?
I don't think they'll do that. I mean, I love Trey Lance. He's one of my favorite prospects in the draft. I feel like he's going to have a good pro career, but we're talking about a guy that's got just over 200 pass attempts with 1 year of starting experience in the FCS. You're going to trade up a huge haul to 4 to get that guy with so much uncertainty around him. I would like to see how keep it rolling, and let's actually see if maybe you could trade up to like 7 or 8 and still get Trey Lance.
So probably could. Let me add one thing to that then. In 2009, the Carolina Panthers were set to pick 28th, and they needed a quarterback, and they ended up trading out, and then they took where'd they take him? They took him way later. Jimmy Clausen, right?
Right.
They took Jimmy Clausen on day 2. Jimmy Clausen didn't work out. They're able to get the number 1 pick next year and take Cam Newton. Patriots aren't going to pick first overall next year, but I think that concept of if you take a guy on day 2, you still need to be willing to go into it with the idea that you're not crossing quarterback off as a need long term. So if we are going to, continue going, I'd like to pick up a top 60 pick at some point in next year's draft. But we'll move past this.
See where it goes, because I
can jump right to 15, right?
No. I think we should keep it going a little bit, because the quarterbacks are still here, right? So at this point,
and none of them went from 4 to 7.
Right. So now we are on the clock with the Panthers at 8. I'm starting to talk about trading up now for Lance or Mac Jones at this point, right? Because now you're going from 15 to 8. You're really not looking at a whole lot. And I don't know if the simulator is built in right now to factor in the Sam Darnold trade, right? I don't know if they can program the algorithm to understand that Carolina's not going quarterback here. So
it doesn't look like they've done it yet, because it has quarterback as their primary need. But I think I don't think it factors in who's on the board when you make a trade. So we're good in that regard.
Okay. So I think if you can get up from 15 now for, let's say, just day 2 draft picks, then we have to try it, right? 15, 46, maybe round 2 next year in 2022. I don't know if that's enough.
So I think it'll take less than that, Evan.
So if it'll take less than that.
So I'm looking at the draft chart. We need 90. We need, assuming we do this, right here, we're now 90 points short. So our second round pick is worth 128 points. So we could either add the second and then get another pick back, or we could trade a few. And you know what? Let's round up a little bit, because we might be competing here. But we're 90 points short right now. Our second round pick is worth 128. Our next pick after that is worth 40.
Okay, so let's try to keep 46.
Okay.
And see if we can do without 46, because I think we can. We have some things in mind that we want to do on day 2 in this. So let's try to keep 46. The question that I have now, and we got to make this trade to 8 because Denver is going to take a quarterback here now that both guys are still on the board. Let's try to make this trade happen without a first round pick in 2022 and see if we can maybe do it for a round 2 pick.
That second round pick is worth half of 130. It's like 70,
65,
right?
65.
65. So we're still 20-ish, 65 to 90s. So we still need another 25 points.
So can we throw 120 in there?
We can throw. Well, I'm going to throw on 122 because I have an idea for 120 in a little bit. They're both actually worth 25 on the chart.
Okay, let's see if they'll do this.
I still think we need to throw on something more because maybe we're competing with another team, right? We need to go a little over the chart. We can throw on a future.
Knowing that Bill's picking up the phone right now, John Elway is picking up the phone too, to make sure he doesn't get jumped for his guy.
So we'll give him like a future 5th, right? Because we have all the draft capital. Let's see if that goes through. Nope. So what if we turn that into a future 4th here?
I have a feeling that it's going to be really tough to get this to accept without a future first round pick.
Do you want to give up 96?
Okay, we can give up 96 because we can always use those 4th round picks.
There's a way. Let me see in my notes here. Yeah, there's still a way we can get back up into the top 100.
Right.
Nope.
So they want that future first round.
And I think we only have like one or two shots left at this.
And the other problem I think that we're having
2 shots left
is that Carolina is probably taking one of the quarterbacks with this pick in the simulator. So because they don't have that built in yet, that Sam Darnold is their quarterback next year. So that's a problem that we're running into with the software here. But I don't hate giving up the first round pick. Obviously, we'd have to take off all the other stuff and just give up the first.
We just go right here.
But the question is do we really feel that Mac Jones is worth this?
Are we not taking Trey Lance here?
I don't think the Patriots are going to take Trey Lance. We could take Trey Lance. We can do whatever we want. But to me, again, when you just sort of think of their old school boxes, he just doesn't check on enough of them. He's a player that has so much inexperience, and to trade a future first round pick for somebody that I just don't feel like they're going to have enough on to be sold on. You know what I mean? I just don't think there's enough tape, enough information for them to be 100% sold on a trade up for Trey. But I love Trey Lance, so we don't have to convince me to do it. It's more so about them.
So we are still, this right now is a massive overpay.
Yeah.
On the chart.
The only thing we could let it roll through Carolina, but I just feel like
Denver's not going to trade out of that pick. That's
right.
The thing.
And Mac Jones,
we have to assume Denver's taking quarterback there, so we could try to trade up with Dallas or New York, maybe. Right. But I don't know if the Panthers take quarterback here, the simulator's not going to let us do it.
Right. So then the other option is to fall back on our original plan of waiting for the quarterback till day 2.
I still don't think. Hang on. Did we try this? Oh, we tried a lot more than this, right?
Yes.
What if we tried 46? Because again, I think we can move up and get another top 100 pick. Or wait, this.
Okay.
We can move up. We can get another top 100 pick. Yeah, this fits the chart. That's about the right price.
Let's see if they'll take this. If they don't take it, it's because they really want us to keep this pick for a quarterback.
Yeah, that might be what happens here. So are we? We have one more shot. Do we want to try? Just try this. Nope. And we're out of tries.
They just
hung up on us. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and that kind of jumped. And they did take a quarterback right, and then Mac Jones went. Look, somebody's trading up there.
The point is that I do actually feel like in that 8 or 9 range right there, we could get a Mac Jones or a Trey Lance trade up. Right now, this really killed us too because Micah Parsons went at 14, the pick right before us. Yeah. So that's a tough one to swallow too. So at this point, I kind of feel like we could take JC Horn again, like we did last week. We could trade back which I don't think is a terrible idea at this point either.
So
if
again,
we don't want to just do, go with JC Horn all over again like we did last week.
This goes back to what I said. I think even if you're picking Kellen Mond, I think quarterback is still on the table next year now. So if we can trade this back and get a future asset, I'm all for that.
All right, so let's try to do that. I feel like the biggest thing that we did kind of explain, though, here is that there is a path now that Carolina is not taking a quarterback at 8, but the Patriots could wait until, let's say, 7 or 8 and still get the 5th quarterback off the board. Right. Yep. And that's definitely, I think, a trade that the simulator didn't let us do it because they're not factoring in Sam Darnold. But in the real world, we're factoring in Sam Darnold, and that trade with Detroit or that trade with Carolina is possible. So I think now we try to trade back maybe into the 20s, still get a guy on the defensive side of the ball that can help. And like you said, pick up an asset next year in order to, get that quarterback if we have to next year.
So who might try to want a tackle or a corner here, I guess, is the question. I think Indy's definitely a possibility. I think Pittsburgh's a possibility. I mean, who are you looking at here? Do we want to try to just go down to 21?
We could try to go down to 21. I wonder if...
Oh, here's who's calling. Oh, everybody's calling. Everybody but like 5 teams.
At this point, I feel like the question is, do we trade back for defense, not tackle necessarily, though?
Well, no, I'm saying who's, because the top 2 players on the board are a tackle and a corner. I'm saying who's trying to get up.
Oh, okay.
Who needs those positions to get up here?
Okay, scroll back up a little bit just so I can see who. Okay.
I mean, we want to trade far enough back that we can add a top 60 pick next year. So
right, maybe Arizona.
But that's one spot. I mean, we're not.
Right, they might take
pick up doing
Horn
that
if we don't take JC Horn here. I think if we trade back to we can't trade to 23. So I think if we trade back to the 20, maybe with Chicago, or 22 with Tennessee, if they're calling. Vegas is what, 17? I don't know what the point of that is. We're probably not going to gain anything from that. So maybe Tennessee.
Yep. So let's see here. Let's pull up the old chart. Tennessee's pick is worth 253. Ours is worth 310. So we can get 60 points. That's their next year's second. So we can do this according to the chart, and it's going to work. And I'm good with that. You're picking up a top 60 pick next year. I think you need that. I mean, I'll get greedy. We might as well try, right?
Sure.
That's not going to happen. We're going to keep it realistic. If we were going unrealistic, I had a whole other trade we could have made. Let's try that. Boom. Okay. Future capital. I like that.
I like that too. All right. So here we are at 22.
Yep. So here's so they took Darisaw and then Horn went the next pick. Yep.
Okay.
And then Kyle Trask went, so he's off the board.
Oh, okay. Jesus. All right.
Just for the record.
All of this is totally fine with me, actually, how this has played out so far. I think the interesting guy right now, there's 2 schools of thought here, right? We could look at some of the defensive players. Zaven Collins is looking at me right in the face right now at 22. I think that's a really good value for him. End of the first round. Does everything they want him to do at the linebacker position. I don't care what PFF says about his ranking. I think he's a better player than that. Yep. The other option is Rashad Bateman, who, if they're going to go big at wide receiver, I don't know if they will. I've been saying all offseason that I would pass on wide receiver because of the depth of the class. Rashad Bateman is electric. He is a great route runner. He's great with the ball in his hands. He's a technician, but he's also got speed, and he's a very smooth athlete. He's an intriguing player. But to me, the guy that checks the most Patriots boxes, we did the trade down, so we're not taking him in the top 20, is Zaven Collins from Tulsa. You can convince me otherwise if you want.
So I'm fine with Collins. My thing with Bateman is I feel like I think if the Patriots are going to take a wide receiver, it needs to be Julian Edelman type, replacement. I think that they're locked in on the outside for the next 2 years between Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. And I know those contracts are a little weird, but they're basically 2-year deals. And then you have Jacoby Myers as well. I think if you go a little later, right, we both think Jacoby Myers is a very good player, but if they, his contract's going to be up in a couple of years, they generally don't pay for receivers. Go get that, slot receiver. There's a bunch of developmental slot receivers in this draft, right? So somebody mentions Elijah Moore, and I would go more over Bateman here if we're going to take a receiver. But again, there's a lot of receivers from that mold I like later in the draft.
Right.
This is not a great linebacker draft. So to go back to Zaven Collins, maybe like we could take Nick Bolton at 46 instead, but I don't know that outweighs, unless we go with a corner here, anything the Patriots particularly need. I would like to look at the tackles, because I think tackles definitely a need. I think it's definitely a direction they can go. I mean, Samuel Cosme, I think, would be a good fit. We have him on the board here. You don't?
Not at 22.
Not at 22. Do any of these tackles at 22? I mean, we took Tevin Jenkins at 31 last week.
Tevin's the only one that I would be comfortable here at 22. I think Walker Little, Sam Cosme, both of those guys are very much developmental tackle prospects, guys that I think have some technique issues, especially Walker Little, who hasn't played a down of football in forever. So those two guys I think are more of upside, and I'll put Raduns in that category as well. Those three guys are upside guys. Tevin Jenkins is your already polished, ready to go, right tackle tomorrow type of player. So those are nice. I'm still sticking with Zaven Collins. Off the ball running, run defensibility, coverage, drop in coverage, rush the passer from the edge or inside as a blitzer, do all those things, wear all those hats, learn from Dante Hightower for a year before Hightower hangs them up, then replace Hightower long-term when Hightower is done. That's the way that I look at that pick, right? Is you're getting the guy the same way you get the tackle or a corner a year early. You're getting the linebacker a year early, knowing that you need to replace that skill set down the road. He has that cover, rush, play, run.
Are we sure? I guess my question is, you're going to need a tackle next year, right?
Yes.
Are we sure you're going to need, like, maybe Dante Hightower has more than 1 year left?
Maybe he does, but I want to get the guy in the building before Dante Hightower retires, because I want him to learn from Dante Hightower.
There's also, I mean, and people are pointing out in the chat, Jabril Cox, Jamin Davis, like there's good linebackers. Not that there's not good tackles coming.
They're not going to take Jabril Cox or Jamin Davis. I can tell you that right now.
I just think they're going to need a tackle next year. Whatever happens,
need a tackle, but I think we can get a tackle. I think we're going to get a tackle on day 2 here, no problem.
Okay, all right.
I think there's plenty of tackles to take a tackle. What I'm more worried about right now is that the simulator is going to take Kellen Mond with one of these picks in the end of the first round. I think the pick is Zaven Collins. I know I'm convincing you to do something that you don't necessarily want to do, but that's the way I feel about it.
All right, I guess we'll go with your. It's your draft. You're the host. Your pick. We'll go Zaven. No, you're right. We can get a tackle later. You are right. We have that extra asset now if we need a tackle.
I feel like we can get a tackle later. I think.
What do we think they're more likely to do? Are they more likely to take Zaven Collins in this spot, or are they more likely to take a tackle?
I think Zaven Collins. I've said it before. I feel like he checks more boxes than any other prospect in this draft for the Patriots. We're talking about a guy that does all the things that they want their linebackers to do. Can play on the line, can play off the line, can drop into coverage, can rush the passer on passing downs if you don't want to drop him into cover. You can do everything that you want with him. He's got great pursuit speed. I think there's a whole lot going on there with Zaven Collins that you really can see a lot of different things that the Patriots like to do when you turn on Tulsa's tape that line up with what the Pats and what Collins has experience with doing. Plus, I also think that he has sideline to sideline speed and the ability to pursue the ball, which is something that they don't necessarily have at that second level either.
All right. Zaven Collins the pick then. Evan's pick. And here we go.
I'm glad that we got one of these in with Zaven Collins as a pick.
And you are good. Okay. So you're the one, again, you're the one who wants to take Kellen Mond here.
Take him.
Do you want to explain it for the people? I know you've explained it to me a number of times.
Okay, so here's the skinny on Kellen Mond and the reason why this makes so much sense. Kellen Mond is the type of player that didn't do anything flashy at Texas A&M, wasn't the big wow throw type of guy down the field, but he certainly got the job done when it was called upon. He was a 3-year starter in the SEC, Senior Bowl MVP, checks a whole lot of boxes for the Patriots in that respect in terms of intangibles, experience, big-time conference quarterback. He also ran a pro-style offense at Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher. And the last kind of thing I'll say about Kellen Mond is that he looks like a guy that understands how to run the quarterback position in terms of managing the football game. He makes good decisions with the ball. He gets to his reads well. He gets the ball out quickly. There's a lot of guys that I trust, and somebody just mentioned JT O'Sullivan, who's a really good quarterback breakdown guy on YouTube. that think that Kellen Mond looks like a guy that understands what he's supposed to be doing out there, right? He understands the position. He understands the nuances. I think Kellen Mond, to me, Kellen Mond at 46 might be better value than Mac Jones at 7.
Like, and again, I don't think you values the appropriate discussion to have at the quarterback position.
I don't think so either. But I think value conversations what they're going to have in their room,
right? And I'll say this for the people saying we're taking Kellen Mond too high. And by the way, I agree this would be too high for Mond. But this is traditionally quarterback stock only goes up. There's only been about 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the last few years who've actually had their stock go down during the pre-draft process. And Mond, in this draft specifically, quarterbacks are flying up at an exponential rate, right? Mark Schofield said on our show on Tuesday, Trey Lance and Mac Jones are probably second-round picks. Kellen Mond's probably a 3rd or 4th round pick in your average draft. But if you want Kellen Mond, if this is the swing you're going to take, this is where you have to take it. And I'll say this, as much as I've kind of created the idea of settling on Kellen Mond, I'd much rather settle on Mond than Davis Mills or Jamie Newman or Shane Buechele. Do not put Ian Book's name in the chat. You will enrage me. Like Kellen, the intermediate quarterbacks, right? People normally fall in love with the day 2 quarterbacks in the draft, and that's where you get all excited about value. That was Lance and Jones. Those guys are gone. Mond is kind of in his own class now, I guess, with Kyle Trask. If you miss Mond, I think you miss. I think at that point you go, and I've said this, you go down to the 7th round, you take a shot on Felipe Franks. It's all the same. So that's the defense of taking Mond here. Is if you don't take him here, you're not going to get him, and he's so much better than anybody else. Stop. And I invited that on myself with Ian Books in the chat.
Okay, so the other defense of Kellen Mond, though, just quickly, is who was he throwing to at Texas A&M? Like, seriously, like there was not another NFL wide receiver that he was throwing the football to.
Yeah, that team was historically bad. And he also, I mean, he played for 3 coaches in 4 years.
Right. So it's a terrible supporting cast, a lot of system changes. And then he goes to his pro day, and I get it. Pro days are overrated. He's throwing against air, but you saw the arm talent at the pro day, right? This guy has a much better arm than people realize, I think. All right. And I truly feel like when you look at Kellen Mond, you see a guy, I'm not saying he's going to be this guy, but he has a Dak Prescott ceiling, right? As a player that underperformed a little bit in college, didn't have the best supporting cast or surrounding factors, but had the arm talent, just needed to work out some things mechanically, and then was going to be a really good quarterback in the league. And then you also add into those athleticism things and stuff like that. Now, the downside if Kellen Mond is, like you've said, is bust, right? He could bust.
Right.
Any quarterback could bust. But I feel like he has the makeup of a quarterback that could ascend in the NFL, throwing to Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith and Nelson Aguilar and Jacoby Myers and maybe the receiver that we take at some point here on day 2. He's going to have to be throwing to much, much better players in a much better system in New England than what he was working with at Texas A&M for the most part. So I feel like he is the arrow's only pointing up right now for me with Kellen Mond.
So here's why I would be okay with the Mond pick in this situation. First off, like I said, nobody else is really close. Second of all, we added this 2nd round pick, and I think we can add another 2nd round pick. And Mond's okay as long as you're not locking him in as the guy. Mond is okay as moving forward that long-term quarterback is still potentially in need unless he comes out and actually absolutely blows the doors off the place as a rookie. He could still potentially be a Jimmy Clausen type of guy. Right. So with those conditions, we're going to take Kellen Mond at 46. Yes. And then I'm going to pause it because there's a couple trades I want to make here.
Yeah.
So
we do.
So here's what. So I was fooling around with the draft chart earlier today. Actually, this might have been yesterday. They're all running together at this point. Quarantine needs to end. And I found this trade that works almost perfectly on the trade chart. Or actually, do this, and then we give up this, and this. Seems like a no-brainer to me. You need to consolidate picks. You pick up an extra top 100 selection.
I like it. I wish we could get higher than 89, but I don't hate it. Because the way I look at it right now is we go wide receiver and then tackler corner with our 2 top 100 picks.
So the other thing I was going to say is, do we trade 96? Now we can trade 96, pick up a future 2nd, and really be rolling next year when there's a clear board.
Okay, so let's see what happens. Let's run it through a little bit here. I think the next pick that we go with I would like to target a wide receiver here if we can.
So, and just to catch everybody up, so we took we traded down and we took who'd we take? Oh, Zaven Collins. The first pick in 22. And then we took Kellen Mond at 46, and then we traded up. We gave up 2 4th-round picks to move up to the end of the 3rd. Oh, there's a couple good Pats picks right there that went way before us. There's another one. I like James Hudson for them too. But so here's the wide receiver board right now.
So we lost a lot of okay. All right. Now
again, it does this weird thing with Amari Rodgers where it thinks
PFF's board is wide receiver board is a little bit weird. All right.
Yeah.
Is Dwayne Estridge off the board? I'm assuming he is. Unless they have him.
He goes pretty early in this, I think. No, they have him all the way down here.
Okay, so that's the pick. That's the guy that I'm interested in at this point because Phil Perry did a podcast with Dwayne Estridge. He said that he has had conversations not only with the Patriots offensive coaches, but also Cam McCord, the Patriots special teams coordinator as well. I think he's a player that they view has 4-down potential. Right, whether it's as a returner in the kick game or covering kicks. He is somebody that is as explosive as any wide receiver prospect in this draft. So we talked about taking a wide receiver potentially up in the 1st round. You're getting a guy that I think has home run ability at this point in the draft in Dwayne Estridge just as easily. He's also somebody that plays out of the slot, but he's not as small as a Jalen Darden or as a Tutu Atwell from Louisville. He's a little bit of a bigger bodied prospect than that. He's thicker, right? He's got a nicer frame to him. So I really like Dwayne Estridge here. I think they really like him too. And again, you want big playability. You want a guy that can literally score from anywhere. Then Dwayne Estridge can literally score from anywhere. And we talked about Edelman's issue. Karen Grigian of the Herald reported today that Julian Edelman's probably not going to be able to play a full season next year if he plays at all. So here's your slot development guy for the future who can also contribute in special teams. That needs to check a whole lot of boxes to me.
Most of what you just said about Dwayne Estridge, though, I think applies to Jalen Darden. And
the problem with Jalen Darden is that he's 5'8", 175 pounds.
But you can put guys put on weight when they get to the NFL.
But not when you're 5'8". Like you can put on weight when you're 6'1". Where's the weight going if you put it on Jalen Darden?
Muscle.
And is he going to get slower?
He's not that muscular. I mean, he might, but at the same time, like you said, the footwork is, like you've seen, the footwork is so good with him, right? And just the innate ability to know where he's going after the catch. He might be a year away, but again, if he sits behind Jacoby Myers for a year, I think, again, you have that home run potential coming out, and he's a fantastic kick returner as well.
The problem I have with Jalen Darden, other than the size is a big issue for me because in the NFL, when you're that small and you can't get off of physical coverage, you become a gadget player, right? That's really what you become. And people that are saying Tyreek Hill is the same size as Jalen Darden, no, he's not. No, he's not. I've been pretty close to Tyreek Hill on the same field level. You see Tyreek Hill and how thick and how built that guy is. He does not somebody who is actually like his body type is not some of a 5'8", 5'9" person, right? He's built like a much bigger guy. So that's not the same thing. Tyreek Hill is a totally different animal. Jalen Darden, the thing is that he's real thin. And you're going to be projecting him into a role in the slot where you're going to have to work over the middle. You're going to have to play through contact. You're going to have to be willing to go up and get hit. But that is just not all those things that you can do if you're that size and be able to hold up in the NFL. So I don't know. I feel like Dwayne Estridge is a better bet and fits more of what they want to do at that position. And I trust Phil Perry, who spoke to him on his podcast, like I said. And I feel like that's the way that they would go there.
So let's just see what else. So the other needs at tackle, there's not much, right? We can probably wait there unless you don't like Brady Christensen, right? You're not a Brady Christensen guy.
No, I think Brady Christensen can play. I do, but I think at this point we have 90. We still have 96, correct? So I think that we can still get the tackle there at 96. I would much rather take Estridge now and not risk losing him in the next 7 picks or 8 picks.
Right at corner, I do like St. Juice. I think a really good big physical man corner.
I like him too.
Strong Senior Bowl. He could be a fit here. Again, I just don't know. if you take a receiver in the top 100, you kind of have to trade N'Keal Harry if you do that, because there's just not enough roster spots for all these guys. You're going to carry at least 3 tight ends, probably 4. You have 4 wide receivers that are roster locks. That's not including Julian Edelman or N'Keal Harry.
That's why I like Estridge, because Estridge can play in special teams. And if you're going to be the 4th or 5th,
but again, are we taking this guy? But that's a 2-year projection. N'Keal Harry's still under contract for 2 years. Kendrick Bourne,
I think
they're all under.
Understand that N'Keal Harry is. We're probably looking at the beginning of the end in N'Keal Harry in New England very soon here, right? I mean, how much are we going to count on him or Julian Edelman at this point?
So if we make this pick, I think we trade N'Keal Harry.
Sure, maybe we trade N'Keal Harry, we pick up another 4th or 5th round pick, and then we can use that to take another player that we like.
I would still go Darden over Estridge, but if you're that sold, I understand
why you like Darden, but he's so small, and I know those types of players, they end up being Dree Archers, right? They end up being gadget type of guys that take jet sweeps and end arounds and reverses and screen passes. And you're just trying to scheme up ways, Tavon Austin, right? You're just trying to scheme up ways to get him into space.
But again, if you can figure that out, and they have all these unique offensive pieces, if you can make that work, there's so much potential for that position, for the guys who can do that. Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, even a guy like Jamison Crowder. I mean, those guys can be insanely useful and insanely dangerous.
They can be somewhat useful, but I think a lot of those guys have,
especially a guy like Jalen Darden, I think makes things very easy on the quarterback. And if you're going to go forward with Kellen Mond,
guy that's 5'8" make things easier on the quarterback. You got to
because he can create after the catch. He's going to create yards on his own. He's going to create yards without the quarterback helping him. He's a guy you can get the ball at the line of scrimmage and he's going to make something happen.
And so is Dwayne Estridge. Have you watched Dwayne Estridge? That guy takes ball, catches a hitch, 5-yard hitch, and takes it 85 yards to the house. He scores on screens from everywhere. You know, I think that they have the same type of burst. I think that Darden is more elusive in the open field with the ball in his hands. He's more of a kind of like a joystick in the open field. But Estridge has that burst and that straight line ability. And I just, again, I worry on Jalen Darden's projection and being able to run routes at the NFL level at that size down the field.
Well, again,
we can create behind the line of scrimmage. We know we could create if you can scheme him up into space, but is he going to be able to beat a corner mano-a-mano, man versus man, right in the middle of the field with a safety coming down? I don't know. I don't see how all of that is going to work.
So, and I'll just add this too. I wouldn't necessarily take a wide receiver here. Again, I just think it's too much of a roster crunch. Even if Estridge can play special teams, I think it's too much of a crunch to get him onto the roster. At this point, I would go corner, because again, they still don't have Jason.
Who are they going to take a corner at this point?
Who's their 3rd outside corner? I would take St. Juste here.
I feel like we could get St. Juste later. I also feel like they could take a UDFA corner and turn him into somebody as good as they're going to pick here. So I'm going to keep on pounding the table for Estridge. I think that he's the player that you take here. I do.
All right.
The only other guy that I would even talk about here is Cornell Powell, but I think it's
Dwayne. Well, that's a completely different kind of receiver.
Yeah, it is.
All right, Estridge it is.
Thank you.
I think we're moving out of this pick then.
Well, let's see who's left on the tackle board. Is Jermaine Davis still on the board? That's hilarious.
Yeah, PFF. I had him on the board in like the 6th round earlier today.
Yeah, Jermaine Davis. Okay, so Brady Christensen's still here. So
So this has to be a guy, because again, we're doing a lot of roster crunching here. We're committing to keeping 3 quarterbacks. We're committing to keeping a lot of linebackers by taking.
Are we committing to 3 quarterbacks?
Probably.
Why are we committing to?
I guess maybe not. But we're committing to keeping, an extra linebacker in Zaven Collins, and we're definitely committing to the extra receiver in Estridge. These are already positions of tremendous depth. This has to be a guy that's going to have a role right away.
I'm just not sure where the receiver depth necessarily is, though, Alex. Like, you have Jacoby Myers.
It's not true depth. It's just a lot of bodies that you're not going to get rid of.
The only guys that are locks. Karen just reported today that Julian Edelman might not even play. He might have to retire or might start the season on PUP or something like that. N'Keal Harry, we have no idea if he's going to be on this team. And other than that, who are we talking about? Gunner? I mean, you're going to take 5 or 6 wide receivers out of camp. You're definitely.
I think they take 5 and 4 tight ends. I don't think they're ready to give up on the last year's rookie tight ends. I guess we can't call them the rookie tight ends anymore.
But then it depends on what they do at fullback too. Like, do they convert Dalton Keene into a full-time?
Right. They have like 3 potential fullbacks right now. So
are you saying that they don't have the depth to take a tackle here that's going to be a roster lock? Is that what you're getting at?
I'm saying no. I'm saying a tackle's fine, but you have to take a guy here who you know is going to serve an important role.
So who's on the cornerback board as well? And we can also take a quick look at safeties too. This is, and we're getting into some good debates. I do like that.
Right. So here's the tackles. I think it's safety. I'll add safety too. Safety, even though I think maybe at this point it might be a little too early.
I think, I think that they can get a free safety guy, a guy that can maybe project into a center field role later on as well.
Right.
So
here's the tackles and the corners. We could also just trade out of this pick and pick up a future pick.
So Ty Gowen's an interesting player too. He's definitely your prototypical press man, get in his face type of cornerback that can play man coverage.
By the way, when we're talking about a corner here, especially without Jason McCourty, I mean, they have a bunch of depth in the slot. Who's behind Gilmore and J.C. Jackson right now? It's Michael Jackson Sr., maybe Juwan Williams, if they're not turning him into a safety. So you need a guy who's going to come in and potentially and compete to be your third outside corner here.
So, right. So I think Brady Christensen's the pick.
Okay.
Or we could go St. Juice, but I think if you take St. Juice, you're basically saying that Juwan Williams is a full-time position change player to safety, or we're giving up on Juwan Williams.
Don't you think they've kind of said that at this point? I mean, how much outside corner did he really play last year at a garbage time?
The thing that's funny to me is every single time he does get reps at outside corner, I actually think he plays pretty solid out there, but they just don't seem to see it. And maybe at practice, he's a completely different issue, right? You know what I mean? Maybe he's not showing it at practice, and that's the obvious answer. But in terms of what I see when I watch him play outside corners, you have to be careful, but you would have to be careful with St. Juice too of who you put on him, right? You can't put him up against Tyreek Hill. You can't put him up against a super shifty receiver. But if you put him up body type versus body type and you match up with him, then he was a pretty good outside corner, whether it was in the preseason or it was in regular season games when he finally got an opportunity. So it's interesting. I think when he gets out there, Juwan Williams hold his own. I think he looks like a guy that can survive in the NFL. They just haven't really had the reps for him to get out there. So maybe they do feel like this is year 3 for Juwan Williams. Maybe this is the year that they actually give him a chance to be outside and play out there for a little bit. So I think the pick is the tackle. I wouldn't mind a pick like St. Juice or maybe a little bit too early for a guy like Trey Brown, but they might.
I do like Trey Brown. I was going to say, but it probably is. So I'll add this too.
Thomas is really good corner too. Press man, Michigan scheme. You know, got all those ties too. We might be able to get Ambry Thomas at 122 though. So
I'll just add this: what you said about corners earlier, right? They could just as easily grab a UDFA and turn them into something because that's what they've done.
Right.
I would say the same thing about the offensive line.
I would say the same thing about the offensive line too. That's why I steered away from offensive line in the first round this time around, is because I kind of feel like Brady Christensen, they could develop him into just a good of a player, maybe not right away as like a Taven Jenkins or a Radunes or something like that, but eventually, you know, I feel like maybe he could be a starting caliber player for them with their developmental track, the way that they're so good at that.
That's just why I'm thinking, like, we look at who's calling here, right? So, like, this pick, for instance, this works out on the chart. That works. We can just turn this into a top 60 pick. If we're confident with the best players on the board that we can get them later in the draft, or they can get them at UDFAs, again, all of a sudden, now we're picking 4 times in the top 60 next year.
Yeah, no, I don't hate it.
Trade up next year,
especially if at 122, if somebody like Ambry Thomas is still on the board, or one of
I think we're going to get one of those corners at 122. I feel good about
it. Me too. So let's do it. You convinced me.
And there we go. So boom, we're back. Another pick, and now I'm feeling a lot better about the Kellen Mond pick as well.
Yeah.
So let's see here.
All this capital next year.
Didn't see a ton of corners go.
So Jermaine Davis.
See, they just like don't. These 3 guys are always here. Like you can get them in the 5th round on PFF. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Jermaine Davis might go in the 1st round.
He probably will. Okay, so we didn't. They're all still here. I don't think. Right?
Thomas still here too.
Ambry Thomas is still here. They're all still here.
Go ahead.
I like St. Juice the best of the group. I think you like, and I like Brown too. I think you like Thomas.
Yeah. So the reason why I like Thomas is because he plays that Z. That he can shadow Z receivers, right? He's a guy that can travel around. The guy that he reminds me a whole lot of is Malcolm Butler. And he's somebody that can go with someone like that. Now, if you get St. Juice, you know you're guarding him with the X receiver on the outside. He's playing on the boundary, right? He's not going to travel for you. I think a guy like Ambry Thomas has the athleticism and the ability to travel inside and outside for you, which I think is a little bit more valuable at this point, because you have J.C. Jackson, who's the guy that can go on the outside and bang with the bigger X receivers. So a guy like Ambry Thomas, he can play inside, he can play outside. He's got some special teams value to him. To me, he's a really good pick for the Patriots here at this point in the draft. This is kind of a steal, because if he had played last year, he opted out of the 2020 season. If he had played in 2020 for Michigan, I think he's a day 2 pick all day, every single day. But now, because he didn't, maybe he sneaks into the end of the third round in real life, but I think the simulator has him right about where he's going to go in that 100 to 125 range at the beginning of the fourth round.
So I do want to point out, I personally like Tony Fields. I don't know how you feel about him, who just went with the pick we gave to Cleveland. A pick, and you watched this guy, I think, today, a guy I really would have liked for the Patriots, and we just missed it. I'm fine that we trade out of that pick, but if he'd fallen a couple more spots, I would be locked into Caden Stearns right here. I think a lot of what you said about Estridge, where he has that future potential but comes in right away being able to play special teams, that's Caden Stearns to me. I would have really liked to be able to get him right here.
Caden Stearns is an explosive athlete. There's some issues in terms of the technique and the mental side of it. He's got to anticipate things a little bit more. He's got to read the quarterback a little bit better, but he's got explosive athletic traits, and you can put him in the middle of the field, and he's got the speed, and he's got that ability to go sideline to sideline and cover over the top for the defense. The tackling is a big concern with him.
But that's a lot of defensive backs, though. I get it is, and you're not wrong.
If you're going to truly have him be last line of defense,
yes,
he's going to have to improve the tackling a lot.
I think some of that will happen, though, when he gets in an NFL locker room. The technique needs work, but when he gets in an NFL weight room and gets a little bigger, I think that'll help. Just a quick recap, by the way. So we traded down, took Zaven Collins. We took Kellen Mond at 46. And we traded up a little bit, got Dwayne Estridge. Traded back down again, picked up a future second. Now we're sitting on the board. So we're kind of back where we were, right? It's the same guys. Brady Christensen's still a possibility. We have all these corners. I will say Brady Christensen is the last tackle that I really like.
So we could take Brady Christensen here, and because we're team consolidate picks, could we package 177, 197, hey, even 242, and move back up to take one of the corners? Because
we could, but we're also getting into that range that we got into where the draft got away from us, right? Because I'd still like to take a running back too. Let me see where 177 and 242 gets us.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm sort of thinking now is maybe like at this point, I think we're getting into the point of the draft, and I think the Patriots are going to get to this point as well, where these guys, with 80 guys already on the roster, with all the veteran players they brought in free agency, how are you getting these guys onto the 53-man roster, right? At this point of the draft, you have to be taking guys that can project onto the 53, or maybe you feel like you can stash on a practice squad spot. You can't be taking guys at this point that are sort of those fringe 53 guys that maybe get picked up in the waivers, because you're just going to lose those guys because you're not going to have the roster spots. I think they're going to have something like 8 roster spots maybe to fit rookies, UDFAs, anybody else they bring in the veteran market. It's going to be a tough sledding for a rookie to make the team this year.
So again, where does that, I feel like we're in a tough spot. So where does that leave us here again?
I feel like we here either take Christensen or we take Ambry Thomas, and then we try to trade back up for one of whichever position we don't. Let's look at the tackles. Who's left at tackle?
So after Christensen, you go. I have them mixed together here just so we can kind of see how they all.
Smith is solid. He could be a potential high upside type of tackle prospect.
Okay, I do like Cole Van Lanen. I think kind of has that. I don't know if you're getting a starter, but you're getting a reliable third. But I guess they have that. They
might have
Heron.
In Heron.
I think they do have that. And then
maybe we go Christensen here, and then we try to trade, because there's a bunch of corners that are still on the board.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. So let's go Christensen here. Let's see if we can pop into like maybe the 150s. Just going to let it go a bit.
Of course, all these corners are probably going to
right. So we're not trading with the Jets.
San Fran, 155.
Yep. So hang on. Let's just see so we know who went. I think a lot of these corners just went. Kerry Vincent, the one of the smaller. So Ambry Thomas went there.
Yep.
Kid from Oregon went. Oh, Richard LeCount. Again, we're missing the safeties. We should have looked at LeCount at 122. I screwed that up.
That's all right.
We do still. St. Juice is still on the board here.
Okay, so now I think we could probably trade up again, and still, I think there are going to be a couple of corners. I didn't see everybody gone there, so I think there's still going to be a couple of corners.
So we could even do. We have all these picks next year. We could really do. Pull up the chart here real quick. We've
made 4 picks so far, right?
Right.
So we usually we like to make 6, maybe. Right. I think that's a nice number. So maybe we say,
we don't have a 6th rounder next year. I was going to say this plus a 6th next year does it.
So maybe we give up a
5th
in 2023 or 2 7s. Yeah, 2 7s. Try that.
Let's try that. And that's still, again, I'm fine giving up 2. We'll get those back as comp picks.
There you go.
All right. So I think St. Juice is the pick here.
Yeah, let's pull up the corners. So Gowan's an interesting pick still. I think that he's a guy that can play inside and outside for you, press man, corner. It depends. I think it really depends on what.
So here's my question for you. Right? Things go bad. J.C. Jackson, Stephon Gilmore, either Gilmore holds out or maybe Jackson has an injury or something. Who's more NFL ready? Who's going to be more ready to step in as your third corner if you need him?
Probably Kelvin Joseph, to be honest, but I don't know.
You're actually right, but I don't think he's as much.
I don't know if he's true man-to-man press corner. He may be a better fit for his own scheme.
Right, I'm saying between the two guys we're looking at, between the two guys who would be a fit for them.
So the problem with St. Juice is he is raw. He does have some rawness to him. He had a great Senior Bowl, though. And
that's why I'm encouraged. I feel like the guys who have the big Senior Bowls are the ones who are more NFL ready.
Yeah,
that's just me. That's not coming from anything. I've just always felt that way.
All right, so let's go St. Juice. I think we both like him. I don't see any reason to really argue too much about this.
Okay, this is the most contentious draft we've had. Well,
I actually think that we came away with the draft that we both kind of like, and this might be the most realistic draft that we've done yet.
Yeah, we're not trading. Wait, we're not trading up again, right?
We could. I guess the running backs is really if we want to try to grab a fast-moving running back.
Tyree Gillespie went. That's the last safety I was going to look at.
Yeah, that's a play.
I'm good with trading up. I'm good with these last 2 picks.
All right, let's just.
Then that's going to be what 6 or 7.
Take a kicker. Oh, we can't take a kicker.
We can't take a kicker with PFF. We could take
Jermaine Davis apparently still.
That's awesome. Quick recap. We took Zaven Collins at 22, Kellen Mond at 46. We traded back. We traded up and then back. We took Dwayne Estridge at 89. Scrolling. Brady Christensen at 122, potential future starting tackle. And then Benjamin St. Juice is a third corner.
I'm not sure if our St. Juice and Christensen picks are actually realistic. Those guys might be top 100 talents, but whatever. We were just.
I mean, look, we could always like Trey Brown. So we could always take Jamin Davis right here.
Yeah.
They kind of need another backup guard. I'm just going to kind of put the positions on here that they could use. I think running backs on the table.
So Khalil Herbert's still there. That's an interesting guy to think.
I'm going to throw safety on, and maybe they go out and grab an X wide receiver. Oh, right, because we were going to do this. Hang on. Where are they? They like N'Keal Harry.
They like N'Keal Harry.
So we get that done. Okay, so we do have a room for next wide receiver now. So I'm going to throw on wide receiver, running back. Evan, tell me if there's anything else you think I should add. Interior offensive line and safety.
Well, unfortunately, I actually agree with you that if we could take kickers.
I mean, I can just write them in. We can just take somebody and I can write them in. I don't know that either of the kickers worth taking are available here, though.
Yeah, I don't know if they're available at this point of the draft either. I
know you probably haven't watched much Jose Borregales. I think he might be here. He's a little erratic, and I doubt Evan McPherson. They met with him. I doubt he's here at this point. And the reality is, if they're going to take him, they would have taken him with that 150 pick. They wouldn't wait till this point to take him.
So I kind of feel like Khalil Herbert at this spot's a really nice pick.
Okay.
So they've been really trying to get a running back in the room, another running back. He reminds me, and the NFL.com comparison is this guy too, of Mike Davis on Carolina. Just a stout, well-built guy that I think can actually be pretty good with the ball in his hands too. Good ball security. He's got some kick return potential. I think that he's a guy that can make the team with some special teams contributions, and also maybe in the passing game be an impact player there too. I think he's a good pick here. I think this is a crazy steal if we're able to get him at 197.
I think the build is different. Obviously, like the physical build, but in terms of the skill set, there is some Rex Burkhead in there. Tell me if you disagree with that.
No,
but
yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that Khalil is a little bit thicker than Rex Burkhead is, which is a good thing. You know, I think that he's got real thick legs, and I think a lot of guys are going to bounce off of him trying to tackle.
I guess what I'm trying to put out there is Rex Burkhead's the role we're trying to replace, right? I think people hear Khalil Herbert's this like big, thick runner, and it's not wrong, but they picture AJ Dillon or Leonard Fournette or a guy like that, right? Who's just a downhill back. He can catch the ball. He's very good at catching the ball. He's going to contribute in the passing game, and he can block too. That size, right? People talk about, the potential of JJ Taylor being the next pass catching back. He's not big enough to block some of these defensive ends or edge rushers. Khalil Herbert's going to put up a fight there. So I don't hate this pick. I just want to look at some of the other options. Dax Milne, they met with him, so that's why I mentioned him. I don't love him.
We can get him as a UDFA. He's a UDFA type of talent.
I do like Damar Hamlin, converted corner, playing deep safety for Pitt. There's some issues on tape, but everybody on Pitt's defense kind of has issues on tape to the point where you think it's just a coaching thing.
I wonder if we can get Damar Hamlin at 242.
I do too. I just want to scroll through who else. I mean, there's some other backs here. I like Darius Hutchinson as a guard.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. I think if we can, so here's my question.
Herbert here is an absolute steal.
Is it at least borderline realistic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe, running back value is not what it used to be, Alex.
Hang on. Let me look up. I'll pull up the consensus big board, actually. NFL Mock Draft Database.com.
Pretty much higher than this on those types of things. But again, how many running backs are realistically going to go in the top 150, right? At some point, these running backs are going to start to fall down the board a little bit. There's a lot of really good ones this year. ETN, obviously Najee Harris, two guys from North Carolina. There's a lot of running back talent in this draft, and not every team's going to draft a running back, obviously. So
for those of you who don't know, NFL Mock Draft Database, it basically is a consensus of all the Big J mock drafts that are put out, right? SI, I think they put PFFs on there, all those. Mine made it on once, like shed a tear of joy. But they have Khalil Herbert at the consensus. The average pick is 180. So a little bit of a reach, but like you said, running backs tend to fall. I'm good with it. We'll take Khalil Herbert here.
Yeah.
And we have one pick left, and I think we go safety or IOL here. I would be good kind of either way. See who goes. There goes Damar Hamlin. Maybe we get a defensive tackle too. I wouldn't hate if the kid from BYU is here. We could take Jamin Davis. Evans.
Yeah, we could just whatever,
We could. All right, so we go IOL. I'm gonna go safety. There are no here we go. Defensive interior. So the kid from BYU, whose name I can't pronounce, it's not this guy, is not here. It's Tonga, right? Curious Tonga, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
He's a good player. I should learn how to pronounce his name. Taquan Graham's interesting if they want to go nose tackle, I think.
They could, yeah. I've seen a little bit of him. I wouldn't, I don't think that's a terrible pick.
If you want to go guard, I mean, Notre Dame churns out linemen. You can't go. I actually don't know about Aaron Banks, but he went to Notre Dame. That's enough for me.
Yeah.
I'll pull up. Have you watched him or no? I can pull up a scout.
Not yet. I'm protesting day 3 offensive lineman.
We like Michael Mennett. We took him last week.
Yeah. That's anybody our end of the draft guy that we like.
Trey Norwood. Chris Brown's. You can get him as a UDFA though.
I think at this point, I don't mind taking Banks from Notre Dame. Like you said, they really, there's just so many good offensive line prospects that come from there. They teach them right.
What if they've had like their last 5 starting left tackles go in the first round or something?
Most of them are maulers. Most of those guys are hard-nosed players, lunch pail type of guys, McGlinchey, Liam Eichenberg, usually big dudes too, highly recruited, stuff like that. Sure, let's go with the Notre Dame kid. I've heard a little bit about him from my friend Brandon Thorne, who's like the offensive line guru on Twitter, and he's put out some clips of the Notre Dame O-line. I think he's a solid guy at this point in the draft.
Here's the breakdown, just some background from Pro Football Network. 6'5", 338.
Exactly.
Large, explosive lineman.
Sounds like Notre Dame.
A multi-year starter. Opens up the running lanes, anchors and pass protection, the negatives. Minimally effective blocking in motion, cannot slide in space, struggles to adjust hitting a moving target. Are any of those rule them out for you?
Nope.
Okay.
I like them. Let's do it.
All right. That's the pick then. Shot in the dark, Aaron Banks. He'll be the best pick of the draft, and then we're going to let it run out. We're not going to trade up again.
So what do we end up taking?
Hey, Jamin Davis. Wait, hang on. Jamin Davis went. Where'd it go? Jamin Davis did not go undrafted. And I had public board turned up, not the PFF board. Jamin Davis at 255. Just made it in there. These two guys who sat on the board the whole time. All right. If you want to pull that down, I'll download it so we can put it up full screen.
Sure. But I really like what we did because, look, we're not going to sit here and pretend to know what's going to happen, right? We have no idea. But the feel of the draft tonight, I think, was a lot more realistic than what a Patriot draft would realistically be.
You can throw that up now if you want.
We traded back. We got Zaven Collins. Right here, I can take it up full screen to make it easier for people to see. We take Zaven Collins. We move back a couple picks. We pick up that pick next year. We still get a guy that we feel is a premium talent in our system and our scheme, right? Still a player that we think can play all 3 downs, really probably 4 downs with his athleticism. Then we get our quarterback at Kellen Mond in the second round. Instead of trading up a bit at King's Ransom like me and Alex both would want to do, we're able to go and get that quarterback in round 2. Value with Zaven Collins, value with Kellen Mond. Dwayne Estridge, that's the pick. 4 down versatility again. Slot receiver, extremely explosive.
So here's my question about that. You're calling him a lock there because of all that stuff. Isn't that the same thing we said about Terry McLaurin? Right, that midday 2 4 down wide receiver.
That's why I'm making up for Terry that we missed on Terry McLaurin. But I think they're different types of players. They win different ways. But in terms of like the general makeup of it, I definitely think
the background.
Yeah, the fact that he can play on special teams, I think, is really key because, again, as I talked about, getting guys in this draft that can play on special teams. There's just not a whole lot of guys that are going to be able to make the team. So you better be able to play on special teams as an 3rd round pick. You're going to make the team, right? But all these guys that we drafted in the 4th round and later, besides maybe Christensen, who's a future tackle prospect for you, you better be able to contribute in the kicking game to make the 53. So Khalil Herbert is a guy that can play on special teams. Banks will probably play on, field goal protection or something like that, right?
He could even, maybe you slide him to the practice squad. Because how many players did we come away with here? 3, 4, 5, 7. 7 players. And we opened up a roster spot trading N'Keal Harry too. So
yeah, right. So Dwayne Estridge, I think, is a really solid pick. I don't know. To me, last week we kind of went off the rails a little bit. 2 weeks ago, we did the trade up for Justin Fields. This week, I feel like this is the most realistic draft that we've hit, right? Where they didn't make the trade up for the quarterback. They still got the quarterback that they like on day 2. They got 2 guys at the top of the draft in Zaven Collins, Kellen Mond, and 3. I'll put Dwayne Estridge in there, who I think are 3 Patriot type of players, 3 guys that have good value of where we got them. This just feels like a Patriot type of draft. And it also feels like a Patriot type of draft because besides Kellen Mond, we really didn't pick anybody that people in Patriot land kind of want. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't take Micah Parsons. We didn't take the Amari Rodgers or someone like that at wide receiver. We sort of went with their type of guys and guys that wouldn't necessarily be on the beaten path, right? Some people that are a little bit off the radar in some respects. So I don't know. I feel like we did pretty good here.
Right. So I'm trying to find, I have the first one here. I'm trying to find the other one because it'd be interesting to see them side by side. I don't know if you can pull them up like that or if I can pull them up like that, but I think
maybe you make them side by side on your screen. This draft, the first draft that we did was the Alex and Evan want to get a quarterback draft, right? Like that was we're going all up for the quarterback. But again, how realistic is that Bill Belichick's actually going to do that? Here, I'll pull this down when you're so people to make people.
Thank you. Yes, I just accidentally pulled up a picture of me with a mustache.
There you go. So that's the thing. How realistic is that Bill Belichick's actually going to do that, right? Then last week, we kind of went off the rails a little bit, not our best effort, but we did get J.C. Horn, who we both really like at 15. I don't know. I feel like this is our best draft yet in terms of realistic Patriot type of guys, hitting some positions of need, certainly at the top of the draft, and just looking at it in a kind of Bill type of way of how he would handle the draft most years. Now, again, maybe we get uncharacteristically aggressive bill in the draft. Why can't I say that word tonight? Aggressive.
Uncharacteristically aggressive.
Thank you. Maybe we get that bill in the draft. But if we don't, then this is a Patriot draft. You trade down a little bit, you add assets, you get your guy anyways in Zaven Collins, you get your quarterback in the second round so you don't overpay for him. And then certainly you get a guy like Dwayne Estridge who can play on all four downs, explosive big playmaker. I think if we made this draft in real life, I think Dwayne Estridge would end up being one of people's favorite picks because of how explosive he is. I think people will really like him. If you haven't checked him out yet, be sure to do it because he's someone that can really hit a home run. He's someone that you put the ball in his hands, whether it's a screen, a hitch, anything like that over the middle of the field, a drag route, a shallow and underneath route. He can go take a slant 85 yards easily. And those are the types of players that they desperately need.
Yeah, again, I probably would have gone Dart in there or maybe gone with one of the better corners. If you want to pull it back up, by the way, I close to finding the third one. But I think we did okay. Again, I'll go back to what I said before in that you just go ahead and pull it up at this point.
I think we lost it. No, I don't see it on the screen anymore. That's the other you. No, I only have 4 boxes right here. It's okay. We tried. We can put it on Twitter.
There you go. Go for it. It's up now.
Okay, there we go.
So
there we go.
Again, I'm pretty openly thrilled not thrilled with the Kellen Mond thing. I think you got to be aggressive. You can't look at value when it comes to quarterback.
I'm not thrilled with the Kellen Mond thing either.
Right. I would, and we try, but I would go up to 4, at least 7 and get Trey Lance or Mac Jones or Justin Fields, whoever it ends up being. I'd probably go Lance, Fields, Jones in that order if I could choose, but you won't get to choose. That's what happens when you're picking the 4th quarterback.
Yeah, I wish that the simulator had factored in that Carolina wasn't taking quarterback there. That kind of screwed us in terms of the trade up. We did try to trade up.
Right.
We tried 5 times to get Carolina to bite on a trade up for Mac Jones or Trey Lance, and it just didn't work out.
I guess so. But to go back to my point, you look at what we picked up for the future, right? Top 60 pick in the future, and then didn't we get one more? And then we got a future 4th, which could potentially, it can't be a top 100 pick. I'm really bad at math, but it's going to be a high pick. It's going to be a top 150 pick.
Right.
We are in position now. If Kellen Mond doesn't work out, and I've used this analogy a couple times so far tonight, Jimmy Clausen, Panthers picked him in whatever it was, middle rounds, take a swing at things. He didn't work out. The next year, they seriously addressed the position. They used the top pick in the draft on Cam Newton. I would say objectively that worked out pretty well for them. Cam Newton took them to a Super Bowl. The Patriots aren't going to just get the 1st overall pick next year. They probably can't trade for it, but with so many teams investing heavily on quarterbacks this offseason, there's not going to be as much competition. You now have all these assets. Boom, you're going to be able to aggressively move up and go and try to get that guy. They'll have more assets next year based off this draft to move up than they did this year. And Evan, as you've said numerous times, the draft boards across the league suck this year just because there's not a ton of information. There were limited games.
Well, that's
why no combine.
That's why I can't imagine that they would trade up for Trey Lance. Right. I love Trey Lance. I think he's a great player. I think he's going to work out in the league. He's got some technique things, some mechanical things that he's got to fix, but I think he can fix them. And I think he's a hard worker. I think he's going to work at it until he gets those things better. He threw, I think, 218 passes in 2019 in the FCS. The Patriots typically draft 4-year quarterbacks with over 800 pass attempts. Yes, they were uncharacteristically aggressive in free agency. That was completely outside of their realm. But again, to do that in the draft while they just did it in free agency, now we're talking about Bill going completely rogue, right? Bill going completely against what he believes in. If he drafts an FCS quarterback with 1 year of experience in a run-first offense, all of these things, and he just goes ahead and picks Trey Lance anyways, that's a different kind of Bill. And I just don't think we can predict that he would do something that completely out of the realm.
So again, next year, with more information on the table, you're going to have 4 top 60 picks. You could end up with as many as 60 to as many as 6 top 150 picks. I just like the momentum heading into next year. And again, we consolidated picks overall. We netted 6? We added 6 players with the net because that bottom pick again is us trading N'Keal Harry. So I'm comfortable with this draft. I don't know if I'd walk away and be like, oh yeah, back on draft, but back on track, but they
addressed a lot of spot.
So I think me and you were talking earlier, right? And I think what a lot of people don't understand about just team building in general, this isn't a football thing. This applies to baseball, basketball, hockey. You can walk away with good players and still have a bad draft.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that they're walking. This is not quite the opposite, because it's not like they got bad players, but I don't know that we just went out and attacked talent. But I think, by the sum of its parts, overall, this is a good draft.
That's why it's a Belichick draft, right?
Well, except for the last couple of years, it's been good players, bad draft. That's what a Belichick draft used to be.
This is good
by the sum of its parts.
Players, but not the players everybody else wants. Right? This is good players. This is Kyle Duggar, Josh Uche, Anthony Jennings, Devin Asiasi. This is good players, but not the guys that everybody wants. And that's Patriots. That's Bill. And whether you agree with it or not, that's typically what he does. Let
me remind everybody again who was mad at us for passing on certain players. A mock draft is, maybe except for that first one we did, this one. A mock draft is not a wish list.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that was the second one. I did find it. There's the second one. A mock draft is not a wish list. A mock draft is a prediction. So,
right.
Leave it at that.
Yes. Let's leave it at that. Next Thursday, we'll do one more of these before the draft.
Well, no, because weren't we going to do one the Tuesday before too?
Okay, so maybe we'll try to fit in, or maybe we'll do Thursday as a Q&A, and then we'll do the final mock draft on Tuesday before the draft. Hopefully we'll find out some stuff about who the Niners are taking at 3 at that point, so we can sort of figure out the rest of the first-round quarterbacks.
So I do think we need to do one mock draft the week of the actual draft, just because the RFA deadline is on the Friday the 23rd, the Friday before that.
Right.
And we're going to learn a lot about the cornerback position on that deadline. I will say for next week, I've been kind of pushing. I want to do maybe a rapid fire show where we do 4 or 5 different mock drafts and we put weird conditions on them, like only taking players from certain conferences, only trading down, like something like that. Maybe next week's the rapid fire week.
Yeah, we could do that too. I do want to get a Q&A in there at some point, because I know people like that, and we can go that direction.
Oh, wait, we still have, I'm misreading the weeks. We still have 2 weeks. We got plenty of time.
Okay, so we'll get a Q&A in there. We'll get some more mock drafts in there. We do the Tuesday show, which is our normal formal podcast.
I think that's that can be like Q&A-ish, right?
Yeah, we can maybe do the Q&A on a Tuesday, and we'll figure that out. But again, here's our draft tonight. Just one last time, we'll pull it up on its own. I think we hit some good players here. I think this is feels very Patriot-like to get some guys that nobody else, a lot of Patriot fans, I think, look at this draft and say, oh, I would have taken Micah Parsons instead of Zaven Collins, or I would have not taken Kellen Mond there, and I would have taken
Jamin Davis at 242.
Right. Whatever. I would have preferred this receiver over Dwayne Estridge. I know Alex wanted Jalen Darden instead, and I convinced him into Estridge. I think that all these types of things are exactly why the Patriots are the Patriots. They always zig where everybody else zags. You guys want Micah Parsons? We're going to give you Zaven Collins, right? That just feels like something that Bill Belichick would do. But until Tuesday, again, Tuesday we'll do a Q&A. Thursday we'll do another mock draft. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Patriots Press Pass. If you subscribe, you'll get notifications when we go live for these things, and you'll be able to follow us along with all these mock drafts and Q&As and all these types of things as well. But until then, signing off for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. Thanks for watching, everybody.